Hey, Steve Dickey here. We're going to do an in-service on the Sapphire IV pump. We're going to cover a couple of things in this video. It's going to be the general operations of the IV pump all together. So let's start with the face of the IV pump itself. The screen is a touch screen. There's a stop and an on-off button, and there are 3 lights here. These lights signify red for alarm, yellow for it's charging, and green while it is actually running. This is where the IV set will go in. We'll demonstrate that and go over that later. This is the IV pole holder. You just pull it kind of apart there, and it will spin, and the screw type that can clamp down on the pole itself. You could take the IV pump off of the holder. You just push that clip back, and now it's actually detached from the holder itself. To put it back, you're going to have these 2 clips at the bottom, this clip here and that clip there. You're going to put those clips into those particular holes like that, and you're going to push it back until you hear that click again. Make sure that you hear and see that clicked. Sometimes it'll give you a false impression that it's in there, and it's really not. It'll actually fall out on you. So make sure you get those pins where they belong, and push hard, and make sure that this is clipped in like it's supposed to. All right, and now the charging port of the IV pump. So this is the charger. The cord length is really long, as a matter of fact, which is a good thing and a bad thing. The charging port itself, or the charging cable end, is about like the Lucas device charging port. There's a red dot indicator as to where to line up on the IV pump. And on the IV pump, on the bottom, you'll see that charging port is here, and there's an arrow. So that red light and that arrow should line up together. You simply just push those in, and it stays pretty secure. The charger is that it's a metal fabricated charger, and unlike the Z-Vent, that's a plastic one, and we've had some issues with that one. And I'm sure we'll have issues with this charging port and this pump itself, but we haven't encountered those yet. So to disconnect, you just pull that quick connect back, and it slides out pretty easy. And again, to line it up, it's pushed in, and it lines up fairly nice. Okay, that's the exterior portion of the overview of the pump, other than inserting the IV line, which will go on, or we'll cover in another part of the video. The next part will be operations of the pump. Okay, so a few more basic operations. So there is a passcode on this device. Now, this device has been turned on and turned off multiple times, so you're not going to see that passcode on the initial startup on this pump. If you do see a passcode on any pump at startup, the code is 1000. 1000. I'll kind of simulate where you could put a passcode in later when we lock the screen from the patient. But again, if at startup it has a code or a passcode you need to enter, the passcode is 1000. Okay, so on and off, very simple. One press, and the device will come on. It'll go through a warm-up phase. Turn the device off. Again, you're going to press the button one time. You're going to say, yes, I want to turn it off. Now, it's going to alarm on you. You sure you want to do that? You can either use a device to do this, like a pen, something with a soft tip, okay? Or you can use your finger. I've noticed that some pumps work a little bit better when you have some type of stylus to use to activate the touch screen. And it doesn't take much to make it, to activate it. So you don't need to press really hard in any which way, shape, or form when you're using that touch screen itself. Okay, let's talk about these IV sets. We have two different sets. This is the full set, and this is the extension set. All right, very straightforward in its setup. Now, this is the cartridge or the plastic, the piece that you're going to put into the IV pump itself. So I have one here that we've overused and we had to kind of destroy because it started leaking really bad. So it's actually good for demonstration purposes. So obviously the top and then the bottom. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about here. When you go to flush this line, if you'll notice that there is a clip right here that you can see forward on the front side and the back side. When it is pushed in, the fluid will flow through this plastic piece. When you flip that out and up, it clamps the line, will not allow any fluid to flow through it. So if you're priming this line before you put it into the pump, be aware that this is going to have to be pushed in and down so it stays locked in the open position. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and place this into the IV pump. So we are going to open our little door here. Now you'll notice that there's two round resting pieces. This is the bottom side. You're simply going to push this in. It's going to rest on those two pins, and you're going to push that in, and you're going to watch these two latch over just like that. Close the door. It is that simple. It is no harder than that. To take it out, open the door, and when you push those pins up, again, these little arms go over these bottom two pins. You're going to push in until you hear and see those top two clamps come down. Shut the door, and you are good to go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some internal operations here of this Sapphire IV pump. Again, one quick press, going to turn it on. It's going to go through a warm-up phase. Now, we've already got an IV setup in here. It's just a looped IV setup so that we can run the pump itself. So that's so I can demonstrate. Okay, so a couple things. When this comes on, if it has been used, it's going to ask you whether or not you want to accept the clinical course area you're going to be working in, or you want to change that clinical course you're working in. There are two clinical course areas. You might see them also abbreviated as CCA. This one's pediatric, and the other is adult. In some IV pumps, this is the actual screen that you're going to see when you first come in. You're going to choose adult or pediatric. Each of these have their own preset medications, and they both will allow you to pre-program a medication that may not be in there, whether it's weight-based or not. It will allow you to program that. So clinical course areas here. So this top line, you will see that it says pediatrics. So that's where it's currently at if we were to hit exit. It's asking us now to choose a clinical course area. It's in continuous mode, and that's just the battery level itself. So let's say that you did get into pediatric for whatever reason, and you want to leave the pediatric clinical course area and you want to go to the adult. What you're going to do to change that is you're going to tap Options, Pump Configuration, General Settings, and then here where it says Clinical Course Area, you're going to tap that and you're going to change it to adult. It's that simple. Confirm it, and now you're in the adult clinical course area. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the screen itself. The screen is touchscreen. You can use your finger to activate a button, or you could use a soft stylet to activate a button. Even a round side will allow you to activate that. I found that using a stylet of some sort really activates the screen a lot better than my finger does at times. All right. So again, the listing of the current clinical course area, we're an adult. This is the mode it is in. It's in setup mode. The pump is in continuous operation here. Again, this is the battery level itself. The main body of the screen, this is the new infusion screen. At the bottom of this screen is a prime button and an option. The line, even without choosing a medication yet, if you chose prime, it's going to say disconnect it from the patient. You're going to say prime, and it'll actually auto prime for 2 minutes, which is going to be plenty of time to get that little bit of fluid from the bag to the end of that tubing. And if it gets down to the end and it's flowing fine, there's no air bubbles, you can stop that as early as you need to. And now that your line is good and primed, and you just use the pump to do it. Okay, let's talk about new infusion. So we're in adult mode. We're going to do a new infusion. We're going to tap that new infusion screen, and this is where you're going to search your drug that might already be set up inside the pump, where you don't have to mix anything or try to program the pump like we did with the bronze. Okay, so a couple things. You have a back, you have a general options button, you have an A, B, C, and symbol, and you have a find button. So if I were to tap the number 2 here, it'll give me A. If I tapped it again, it'll start scrolling through A, B, or C. Let's say I've misspelled it. I can always go back, and let's say that I just want to erase it altogether. I'm going to hit clear, and that will clear the entire part that we put in into this pump. If I tap find, it bypasses me searching it and will take me directly to the list of medications that is in the adult clinical course area. Tap next, gets me to the next 4. Tap next, it'll take me to the next set, and again to the next set. Now you can see that there's that list stops here. All right, you can always go back and do different things. A couple other things I want to make a note of here. These medications are listed. I tried to describe how this particular programming would be used, and this one would be epinephrine Rosk. You're going to mix it at 1 milligram in 100 milliliters, and this is the dosing in which you're going to infuse that medication. So I kind of tried to help out as best I could with you being reminded of what the actual dose was, and maybe even the concentration of that medication. Now, you'll notice that there's 2 epinephrines. The Rosk dose for epinephrine is different and much lower than the epinephrine for, let's say, hypotension or bradycardia. Those 2 doses are different, so we have listed them out kind of different. I listed some of the other medications as transfer only, so they'll be set up as milliliter per hour. So if you had a medication, you knew it was fentanyl and you wanted to run it as fentanyl, you could simply tap fentanyl, enter the dose rate at milliliters per hour, the volume to be infused, and press start, and it would go. Again, some of these are listed out with the medication type and maybe the dose or even the concentration. So they're all just a little bit different, and we'll actually go through each and every one of these, kind of going through the programming of how each drug really works. Okay, so let's talk about the medication that you want to set up that is not listed here, but you want to set it up on your own. It's simple to do. You just tap choose general. You confirm it by hitting OK. And now you're going to say, okay, well, is it a milliliters per hour dosing, or do you want to use the dose calculation? Kind of like with the B-Bron, where it was a dose rate calculation. So if we tapped that, you could say, okay, well, how was it set up? Okay, let's go, for instance, nitroglycerin wasn't in this pump for whatever reason. So we know the concentration is 25 milligrams in 250 milliliters. So you'll notice here on this range, that's the minimum and maximum ranges. So we know it's 25 milligrams and the volume of 250. And you're going to say, yeah, that's how I calculated it in my brain. Is this weight-based? Well, we know that nitroglycerin is not weight-based. So we'll say no in this situation. Okay, well, how is it dosed? Well, it's micrograms per minute. We're going to go to dose. Again, your minimum and maximum dosings. Volume to be infused, again, 250 is what we have. You're going to hit OK. You're going to hit OK again. Now it's going to send you through a review of all the things that you've already set up and what it's calculated. You're just going to confirm through those. You're going to say start. And now your medication is actually starting. So you can set up a medication that may not be set up inside here as pre-programmed. You can still do that, and you can do it as a weight-based medication. The thing that you must remember is that you got to set up the concentration correct the first time. If you do not set up that concentration correctly the first time, you may not see the actual dose that you would hope for that particular medication. So be very mindful of that. Okay, so there's a couple other little buttons and options here I want to show you during an infusion before we move on to anything else here. So you can actually pause. It's going to say, are you sure? Yep, and now you'll actually be paused. And if you want to resume, it's request continue. Yes, I'm ready to continue, and it'll continue infusing here. If you wanted to do a bolus, you can tap the bolus, and you can enter the amount of that you want to administer and confirm it, and then it will give that bolus and then slow back down to whatever rate here you got going. Okay, so you could go back and you can hit view edit, and it'll show you all the things that you've programmed or that are a result of your programming. A little lock option here. If you tap lock, you can say, I want the screen to lock or I want to patient lockout. So if you just hit the screen lock, so whatever I do to the screen itself, no matter how I touch it, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to open a menu. I'm going to have to press the unlock, and I'm going to say, are you sure? It's going to ask you, are you sure you want to unlock it? And the answer is okay. And now we can go back to touching the screen and changing things if we needed to. There's another option, and this is where you're going to see your 1000 passcode that needs to be entered. If I hit patient lockout, now there's a patient lockout option because this pump can be programmed as a PCA for pain management. So they want to lock the patient out of it so that these options can't be changed. So if you hit patient lockout and you say, okay, I want back in, you're going to have to enter that password again. And remember, that password is 1000, and it will take you right back into the programming. And now you'll be able to change whatever it is that you needed to change. The screen will also time out on you. Okay, so now the screen's timed out and the screensaver simply come up. There's no lock option here. There's no nothing special you need to do other than to simply just touch the screen and it'll take you right back to your infusion screen here. But there will be a timeout where the screen will go into more like a screensaver option. Let's talk about changing that dose. Let's say that we want to change the dose. So we're going to hit that big dose button there, and we're going to turn this patient down. So we're going to put them back down at 10 micrograms a minute. You're going to hit OK. It's going to say, are you sure you want to go to 50 to 10? My answer is going to be okay. And now your infusion has gone much lower. For the vine to be infused, it'll show you what you have infused. What you have infused and what you have left. And it will tell you how much time that you have left on this 250 milliliters of fluid. It looks like you have 41 hours, 20 minutes, and 46 seconds time left. Okay, so you're going to see now that we've actually had a programming of a pump. So it's kind of like the vent. You can set that thing up before you get to a patient. And then when you turn it back on, you could say repeat last infusion. So if you did set something up, you can actually tap repeat last infusion and it'll go back to whatever was programmed last. Neat little option there that they've added to the program.